Kaitlyn. I'm Research Associate at Weeksville Heritage Center in Central Brooklyn, New York. Weeksville Heritage Center, our museum, it's made up of 3 historic houses, and we've restored them to 3 different time periods to talk about the changes in the community over time. So the houses are 1860s era, 1900 era, and the 1930s era Weeksville. And the houses are called the Hunterfly Road houses because they face inward from Bergen Street. And the reason why they face that way is because they are along the old Hunterfly Road, which used to be a trading road that cut straight across Brooklyn from shore to shore. So this third house is 1900 Brooklyn, turn of the century Brooklyn. And by this point, Weeksville has grown as a community. So it's no longer that isolated kind of rural community mentioned before. A lot of the hills have been cut down to fill in other parts of Brooklyn and create kind of more flatter terrain. The grid system of streets has gone in, so Bergen Street exists and has gone in, as has Eastern Parkway. There's a public transportation system that makes getting to Weeksville a lot easier. And the name Weeksville would have fallen out of use. So by 1900, this area would have been considered Bed-Stuy or Bedford-Stuyvesant. So even though 1900 Weeksville was changing, many of things remain the same. Definitely how people would have lived their daily life and gotten their food remained the same. So running water was in some of the houses in 1900, but not in this house in 1900. So people would have still been using pumps to get water for their houses. And also things were changing in daily life. So Mrs. Johnson, in her, on the census, she's listed as working from home. She was a housewife. Some things would have stayed the same, like having a kitchen garden and growing her own food. But some technology in 1900 would have changed the way that she went about her daily life, which would have been having canned food around. But the canned food that she had is a little bit different from the canned food that you'd find in the bodega that's around the corner from us right now. It's all made and canned in New York, so it's relatively fresh to her. And also she would have bought from truck gardens, so people walking by with either wagons or carts and selling produce off of there. So here in this 4th house, we're in 1930s Brooklyn, which is, of course, is Depression era Brooklyn. This house here in the 1930s, the family who lived here were the Williams family. They moved into this house in 1928, and they lived here until 1968. When the Williams family lived here in 1930, they had 4 daughters and 1 son. Even though it was the Depression, they were able to live pretty well off for the time period. So they actually had 3 incomes coming in to be able to support the family and to live pretty comfortably during Depression era Brooklyn. Here at Weeksville, it really is a kind of a groundswell, grassroots approach from our very founding to talking about the history of the people who lived here. We really believe that focusing on the history of people's everyday lives is where the most interesting stories can be told, where the most surprising stories can be told, and where the most inspiring stories can be told. It's really important to us to kind of have that ethic and that interest in everything that we do through programming and research and the stuff that we show the public.